Hello and welcome to my channel. Well, in this tutorial I wanted to show you a stitch, a nice stitch for a scarf. The stitch is reversible, so this is the front and this is the back, or the other way around. Well, this stitch is gonna eat some yarn, but like I said, if you have a lot of yarn that you want to get rid of, Christmas it's approaching, so you can do scarves or hats or whatever you want to do. The sides, as you can see, this is the one, one of the sides, and this ones, which is okay, yeah. But in order to have a scarf, to do a scarf with this stitch, you're gonna have to chain as long as you like the scarf to be. 1 meter and 50 centimeters, 1 meter and 60 centimeters. Depends how long you want the scarf. Then you're gonna have to chain a very long chain, as long as you like the scarf, because if you are to work this stitch like chaining whatever 30, 40, let's say, it's gonna be like this. It's gonna look like this. The V's are gonna be horizontal, not vertical. So if you like to have, for example, a blanket like this, then you're gonna have to chain as long as you want the blanket, and whatever you're gonna work is gonna be how wide you want the blanket or the scarf, But I want to show you this. This is with 2 rows in between the puffs, 2 rows of half double crochet. If you want, and you see front and back, the V's they go down, it's the same. But if you like to put only 1 row in between the puffs, only 1 row half double crochet, then the V's, they're gonna go pointing up, and one V is gonna point down, up and down. This is only 1 row of half double crochet in between the 2 rows of puffs. So it's up to you which way you prefer. So I did another with a gray, bluish, if you like this, and this also has 2 rows of half double crochet in between these puffs, so it looks the same. The stitch is very easy, but like I said, it's gonna eat a lot of yarn, so it depends, if you want to invest in a lot of yarn, or you want to get rid of yarn, it's gonna be great. This sample, the pink one, I use 3.5 millimeter crochet hook, even though they say I should use 7/0, which is 4.0 millimeter crochet hook. But I'm gonna work now with the same yarn that I did this pink, and this time I'm gonna use the 4.0 millimeter crochet hook now. Well, the stitch is very easy. We're gonna chain odd number, so I chain here odd number, and whatever you want to do after you chain the length that you want, then you're gonna add 2 more chains, 1 and 2. Okay, now the first row is gonna be half double crochet in each chain. Yarn over the hook, we're gonna skip the first 2 chains, and in the 3rd chain we're gonna go in there and do a half double crochet, and in each chain we're gonna do half double crochet. If I move too fast for some of you, please slow down the speed of the video and you will see what I'm doing. So half double crochet in each chain. So I started with 15 chains and I added 2 more. So I skipped the 2 chains in the beginning, and in the 3rd I did the first half double crochet. I think for a blanket, if you work with the thinner yarn or baby blanket, it's nice, or maybe a toddler. I like the baby blankets for infants or whatever, to have some openings. If somehow the baby manages to pull the blanket over their face, at least they will have some opening to be able to breathe. Okay, so we did a half double crochet. Now we're gonna chain 2 we always gonna chain 2 at the end. Turn your work, so yarn over the hook. We're gonna skip the first stitch, and into the second stitch we're gonna do a half double crochet. And now yarn over the hook, we're gonna go back to the first stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do the puffs. We're gonna go 3 times, so once, go back again, second, and go back again for the 3rd time. Pull the yarn through all the loops, yarn over the hook. We're gonna skip the next stitch, and into the next we're gonna do a half double crochet, and we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped. Yeah, so in there we're gonna do a puff. So you go once, twice, and the 3rd time. Pull the yarn through all the loops, and we're gonna do like this until we finish this row. Skip the next stitch, and into the next we're gonna do a half double crochet, yarn over the hook, and then we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, this one, and we're gonna do a puff. So 1, 2, and the 3rd time, pull the yarn through all the loops, and we're gonna do like this. Skip the next stitch, and into the next we're gonna do a half double crochet first, and then we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do in there a puff. So once, twice, and the 3rd time, pull the yarn through all the loops. So it's gonna look like this. So again, skip the next, and into the next stitch, half double crochet first, yarn over the hook, and we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff. So 2nd and the 3rd, pull the yarn through all the loops, skip the next, and into the next we're gonna do the same. Half double crochet, yarn over the hook, we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff. Now it depends the yarn that you're gonna use, the size of the yarn. You might, if you do with the thinner, maybe you will need to go a little bit, maybe 4 times or 5 times, depends. Yeah. So we're gonna skip the next stitch, and into the next we're gonna do the same. Half double crochet first, and we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff in there. So once, twice, and the 3rd time, pull the yarn through all the loops, and we're gonna go into the chain. You'll see you have another stitch. We're gonna skip that stitch, and we're gonna go directly into the chain, and we're gonna do a half double crochet. So yarn over the hook, go through that chain, and do a half double crochet, chain 2, and now we have to do again the puffs. So we're gonna skip the first, the half double crochet you always gonna do on top of the puff stitch. Yeah, so we're gonna skip the first stitch, and we're gonna go into the second, and we're gonna do a half double crochet, and we're gonna go to the first stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff. So once, twice, and the 3rd time, pull the yarn through all the loops, skip the next stitch, and into the next, which is the stitch on top of the puff. So you're gonna go in there and do a half double crochet, and we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped. Once, twice, and the 3rd time, pull the yarn through all the loops, skip the next stitch, and into the next we're gonna do a half double crochet, and we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff. Skip the next stitch, and into the next, which is the stitch right on top of the puff, we're gonna do a half double crochet, and we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, this one, and we're gonna do in there a puff, pull the yarn through all the loops, skip, and into the next, half double crochet, and we're gonna go back into the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff. Skip the next stitch, and into the next, half double crochet, and into the stitch that we skip we go backwards and do a puff in there. So now towards the end we're going to skip the next stitch and into the next, which is the stitch on top of the puff. We're going to do the same. I'm going to go in there and we're going to do a half double crochet, and we're going to go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're going to do a puff. Pull the yarn through all the loops, and in this 2 chain space that we have, we're going to go on top of the second chain right there. If you can get 2 loops, that would be great, and do a half double crochet. You're always going to finish with a half double crochet, then chain 2. So it's like, well, I don't know, I should say, you know, 4 rows repeat, because we're gonna do 2 rows of the puffs, and then the next row in each stitch we're gonna do half double crochet. So you chain 2, turn your work, the first stitch is here, yarn over the hook, we're gonna go in there and do a half double crochet, and in each stitch we're gonna do half double crochet. Move to the next, half double crochet, next half double crochet, and so on for 2 rows, if you want these V's to go in the same direction. Yeah, if you don't want, if you want one V to point downwards and other upwards, then you're gonna do only 1 row, this row, and that's it. And then you're gonna start, if you want the V's to point down and up, then you're gonna do only 1 row of half double crochet, and the next row that you're gonna start, you're gonna start with the puffs. Okay. So I'm gonna go straight to the chain. Yeah, I'm gonna skip that puff 1, and I'm gonna do a half double crochet, chain 2. So now if you want these V's in all your work to point all of them like this, then you're gonna have to do 1 more row of half double crochet. So in the first stitch we're gonna do a half double crochet, next half double crochet, and so on in each stitch. Well, this is a beautiful stitch, but it's gonna eat a lot of yarn, I can tell you. It's gonna eat a lot. So half double crochets in each stitch across the row until you finish. So I'm gonna go into the chain, the second chain on top there, and I'm gonna do a half double crochet. So now we're gonna chain 2, and now we're gonna start the row with the puffs. So I'm gonna do this one, and then I'm gonna stop. So the first stitch is here, we're gonna skip this first stitch into the second stitch, we're gonna do a half double crochet, and then we're gonna go back to the first stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff. So once, twice, and the third time. Pull the yarn through all the loops, skip the next stitch and into the next, half double crochet first, and then we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff, skip, and into the next stitch we're gonna do a half double crochet, we go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff, skip the next one, and into the next stitch, half double crochet first, and then we're gonna go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff, skip the next stitch and into the next, half double crochet first, and into the stitch that we skipped, we're gonna do a puff. It's a very easy stitch, goes really fast. So skip the next stitch and into the next, half double crochet, go back to the stitch that you skipped, and do a puff. So into the next we're gonna do, skip the next, and into the next we're gonna do a half double crochet, you're gonna go back to the stitch that you skipped, so once, twice, and the third time, and now at the end we're gonna go into the chain 2, and we're gonna do a half double crochet. Yeah, then you're gonna chain 2, and we're gonna start again with a how you say, with a puff again. Yeah, so the first stitch is here, we're gonna skip, and into the next you're gonna do a half double crochet, go back to the first stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff, skip the next stitch, and into the next half double crochet, and we go back to the stitch that we skipped, and we're gonna do a puff, skip, and into the next, and we go back to the, well, I think you got the idea how is this stitch. Is very easy and goes really fast. I think I don't know, a scarf for men I think will be nice. If you like to do this, even a hat. Imagine a blanket with changing colors. So I'm thinking maybe the puffs should be a different color. If you like, or you can work with variegated. So you skip the next, and into the next you're gonna do a half double crochet, you go back to the stitch that you skipped, and you're gonna do a puff, and into the chain 2. I think I went 4 times in here. Into the chain we're gonna do a half double crochet, you're gonna chain 2, and now you're gonna turn your work, and you're gonna repeat the row with half double crochet in each stitch for 2 rows. If you like for this to go, this the arrows, let's say, to go in the same direction. If you want this like this to go one pointing up, down, then you're gonna do only 1 row of half double crochet. Yeah, I think this stitch is really nice. You guys can give it a try for a baby blanket, or I don't know, whatever project you want to do. So this is the grayish that I did. It's really nice. Oh god, this is gorgeous. But you know, if you want to do a scarf, when you chain, you cast the chain, I think you should work in a back of the chain through the bump. Yeah, you're gonna have this clear. Yeah, the sides, like the V's. Yeah. And when you finish the scarf, for example, even though it has 2 rows in between the puffs, in here we have only 1 row of half double crochet. And when let's say you finish the scarf or the blanket or whatever you do, only 1 row of half double crochet, not 2 like here in between. Yeah, well, give it a try. You might enjoy this stitch. Well, thank you for watching. Have a good day.